Right then, what have we seen? Punjab, why do you do this to yourselves? Because you were in a great position to, of course, get 2 points. There's 2 precious points because teams at the bottom of the table, I mean, it's Goldas and Rajasthan Royals. Count yourself absolutely lucky because they were losing that game all day long until the final over of the second innings. Well done, Karthik Tyagi. Well done, Rajasthan Royals. And we have Jarrod Kimber in the house who went for Punjab before the game. So did our Criclytics robot. So it's not egg in his face for both of theirs. And we'll break it down right now. Jarrod, your first thoughts, because they've certainly cocked it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a messy game, I think. I'm not sure either team played particularly well all the way through. They just had little periods where both of them did very well. I spent most of my time just going, I don't think either team's quite on the ball here. And, when you think about it, you've got 2 lower level teams. Neither of them are in the finals at the moment, although obviously Royals are a little bit closer now. But essentially, it looked like a bit of a scrappy game. But yeah, once we got to the end, it's incredible. If you look at what happened in the first innings, it was very hard to score at the death in the first innings. And again, Rajasthan had a lot of wickets in hand going into that period as well. But Punjab knew that, didn't they? I mean, Punjab had to know that. They had to have been following that. They had to have understood that. And it was interesting. Like, I've just had a quick look at the balls. Again, there was a lot of full tosses bowled in those last 15 balls. There was a lot of wide balls bowled. I mean, Mustafiz's over was incredible. But outside of that, the rest of the bowling was quite poor.
I mean, it's funny because it's so crazy how just 1 over can change the game. And Punjab, we've seen them in positions before of great strength and just throw the opportunity away. We'll deconstruct it further, but like you touched upon there, the death bowling from Punjab, in particular Arshdeep Singh, was brilliant because in the last 4 overs, they lost 6 wickets, did Rajasthan Royals, for 21 runs. And at one stage, you thought, okay, Butler doesn't even matter right now because they were going gung-ho. Where do you think Punjab, of course, lost that game? Was it just that last over, or could they have done anything better?
Oh, look, I think that's the way people will look at it. They'll look at it as, Punjab losing that game. But realistically, Rajasthan got off to a great start. I think Rajasthan got a lot more runs than they should have. I thought Adil Rashid came in for his first game and didn't bowl particularly well. I thought it took him a little bit. I thought it took them a little bit longer to work out what was working for their bowlers and what wasn't working for their bowlers. So I think they allowed Rajasthan, who batted good, but not absolutely out of their skin. I think they allowed Rajasthan maybe 10 or 15 extra runs there. If you really want to be technical, that's probably where they lost the game. But because they put on such a brilliant partnership, and what did they need? 80 off 60 with 10 wickets in hand, then all the way down with 2 wickets in hand, they needed 10 off 15. They were in front at that point. But I think they really needed to kill the game. And to be fair, there's a really interesting thing. When they sent Aiden Markram out ahead of Nicholas Pooran, my first thought was, that's a mistake. I'm not sure it actually cost them anything, but I don't think they were thinking about it the right way, which was we really have to kill this game off early, get a really good net run rate here. They weren't quite of that mindset. And then at the end, I mean, where do you want me to start? So much went on. I think at one stage, there was back-to-back full tosses and they got 2 singles off them. So, not ideal.
And there were a couple of dodgy white calls. I think there were 2 in the first innings where KL Rahul was absolutely livid. So it could have come down to maybe a super over, or could have really evened things out. Punjab's picks, we spoke about them last time around as well when the IPL is about. We criticized the balance of the side. Were you happy with the 4 overseas picks? They went for Allen, Pooran, Markram and Rashid. What's your assessment?
Yeah, I've got no problem with Rashid playing. I think he's obviously a quality player. This was not a good pitch for spinners, which is why you didn't even see Fabian Allen bowl. Usually he'd bowl 1 or 2 overs if nothing else. But he didn't bowl at all. Wasn't a good pitch for spinners. I think that unless you're planning on playing 2 leg spinners, I don't see why Ravi Bishnoi wouldn't automatically be in your team, which allows you to play an extra overseas player. Whether that lost them the game or not. I mean, Adil Rashid went for runs, but Ravi Bishnoi could have gone for even more runs. He's less experienced than Adil Rashid. So I don't know if that came back to bite them, but I just think that it would have given them a slightly better balance. I don't think team selection lost them this game, though, if we're being completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, just another day which goes by in the IPL for Kings 11 Punjab, and they need to pull up their socks if they have any chances of making it. And Punjab find themselves, I think, in that 6th, 7th, 8th slot, which is just not looking good. But Rajasthan, on the other hand, will be happy with those 2 points. Right, time for predictions then, because Jarrod, I should inform you that you've lost 1-0 today. And unbelievable, because it was actually your man which you predicted, KL Rahul, in terms of getting the most runs in this match against Criclytics man, which is Mayank Agarwal. 120 they put on together. The 4th IPL stand between them. I think they're just behind Warner and Dhawan, and then Besto and Warner as well. So talk to me about Mayank and KL. What is it about those two? Because they get starts, but they just don't see the job home.
Well, I mean, to be fair, this is a big chase, wasn't it? I think they did enough, didn't they? I mean, you'd almost need one of them to make 100 to see it home in this particular game. I think they're quite well matched as players. KL Rahul likes to start a little bit slow. Mayank Agarwal kind of has to start a little bit slow because he generally doesn't go as quick against the spinners. But KL Rahul can get ticking against both kinds of bowling. And as we saw today, Agarwal, especially on a pitch like this, where if the seamers don't have much, it's really hard to keep him down. I thought he played an exceptional innings. I thought KL Rahul, to be fair, didn't start slow today. I think he was 26 off 10 or something like that. He had a very, very good start there for a while as well. So I just think that they, if you have 2 openers like them that have the ability to score very big, you might want one of them to start slightly quicker. But it's a really good partnership to have if they're both local players. And it gives you a lot of extra flexibility, which is probably why we saw, Fabian Allen and Adil Rashid in the team. They could take a bit more of a punt because they know that the bulk of their runs are going to come from their top 2.
Yeah, that's a fair point that you mentioned there. And let's, of course, talk about the bowlers, because unfortunately your man didn't play. You went for Bishnoi, and Criclytics called Mustafizur, who was completely wrong. And it was Arshdeep Singh who got a 5-wicket haul. Feel really, really chuffed for the boy. And perhaps India could really have someone like him in their armory for the World Cup. He's a left armer, different variation, bowls a critical overs for KL Rahul. We've seen it last time around. We're seeing it this time around. A word of the youngster.
Yeah, look, I think for international cricket, they might be nervous about the amount of runs he can go for. Not necessarily always the runs that he does go for, but there's a feeling that there are a lot of players in world cricket that like to line him up. At the moment, he seems to take the odd big bag as well. And I suppose what you would rather is maybe he took consistent wickets rather than the odd big bag, but wickets are wickets. And he's a natural wicket taker. I think if you had the exact same kind of bowler as a right arm bowler, I just don't think he would have that the ability that he does. But because when he bowls the off cutter, it spins away. I think that keeps him in the game against right-handers all the way through the innings. And I do think that perhaps maybe because he's not as locked in as maybe some of the other death bowlers in the world. And I think we saw this with Harshal Patel at times. Teams really attack him even further, which brings him into the game with wickets. So, look, he's an interesting wicket-taking option. And as you said, KL Rahul seems to back him. So, be interesting to see how he develops over the next year or so.
Yeah, and only time will tell, of course. But I want to talk about the third prediction because, again, Criclytics and you got this wrong. So, it stood 1-0. And unfortunately, like I said, you lose out today, but you'll come back stronger, I presume. RR, of course, get the points in both, but they kind of looked off the boil, especially Chris Morris. I mean, he went for 25 in that over. Is it perhaps Shamsi to come in, or is it still early signs?
I think they have to stick with Morris unless Morris comes back to them and says, this is not for me. Obviously, it was terrible. He couldn't hit the pitch, really. He literally couldn't hit the pitch.
And it makes you think because he's the most expensive.
And he bowled wide of the leg side and he bowled wide on the offside. Look, I don't think he's going to have many games like that. It would be interesting to know if the ball was just slipping out of his fingers or whether it was yips, because it looks more like yips to me than the ball was slipping out of his fingers, but it's very possible for it to be both. But yeah, that was, as you said, he's the most expensive player. But I think any death bowler, even though he didn't do it at the death, I think any death bowler is going to have days where they have, big numbers. And I don't think he bowled particularly well coming back. He realistically, wouldn't have felt like this if it had happened. But in that third last over, he basically almost lost them the game. He was very lucky that the last couple of full tosses weren't hit for 4 or 6. And if one of them had been hit for 4 or 6, they wouldn't have had that comeback. So I don't think you have to replace him with Shamsi. Shamsi can't bat. So I don't think they're going to be able to do that. But it'd be very interesting to see how Morris bowls in his next game, because that isn't the Chris Morris that we're used to.
Yeah, especially with Rajasthan now in the mix, they will rely heavily on Morris. Finally, just before we let you go, we'll just announce the fan goodie bag winner, but there weren't any, unfortunately, because no one got Mohammad Shami's name right. We asked you before the show that who's going to have the best economy in this match. He came up with 5.25, I think, in his quota of 4. He bowled a total of 13 dot balls. So well done, Mohammad Shami, but unfortunately, no one took the prize. So it's unfortunate there, but that will get more for your subscribing, hopefully. But until the next time, Jarrod, it's good talking to you. Final word from you, my friend.
Yeah, that was madness, wasn't it? I mean, sometimes you see incredible games of cricket where both teams play well, and sometimes you see games of cricket where a couple of players play great. There were some very good performances in this, but there was a lot of madness involved in both teams. And sometimes that's just fun, and this was certainly a fun game.
Fun game indeed, and of course, fun chatting with you as ever. We'll, of course, say goodbye to Jarrod, and we'll catch him, of course, later this week.